Hello, I'm Julian Northbrook from doingenglish.com. I was just doing my members live Q&A call for this week, and an interesting question about idioms came up. And since I am just getting my lunch ready, whilst I do that, I thought I would talk a little bit about this here. Shoot the breeze on the topic of idioms, as it were. Now, the question in a nutshell was this. One of my members said that she wanted to express that it was tipping it down with rain outside. It was raining heavily. So she used the idiom, it's raining cats and dogs. And the person she was speaking to said, no, nobody says that anymore. That's old. People don't use that idiom. But is that really true? Is it really the case that it's raining cats and dogs is old and people don't use it? Well, I did a little bit of research on this topic, and it turns out that no, it's not the case that people don't use the idiom, but with an important but that we'll come to in a moment. You see, when it comes to this idiom, and many similar idioms, really it's actually used in three different ways that I could find using the language research tools that I use. The first category of usage of this idiom that I found was people actually using the idiom to mean what it's supposed to mean, that it's pouring it down with rain outside. The second category, however, which was probably the most frequent usage of the idiom, it's raining cats and dogs, in the research that I did, was people using the idiom as an example of an idiom. So they're talking about idioms, and to explain what they mean by idiom, they use the idiom, it's raining cats and dogs. They're not really using it with the meaning intended. They're actually using it as an example of an idiom. Then the other category was, of course, ESL. English teaching, English lessons teaching idioms, and this doesn't really count at all. But the point is clearly people do use the idiom, it's raining cats and dogs, but it's just not very frequent. And indeed, idioms like this, what we call opaque blocks of language, that is, pieces of language where you can't understand the meaning from the individual words. They have a meaning that is completely separate, which really is, the stereotypical idiom. This type of idiom is actually quite rare in everyday conversation and everyday speech. We do use them, but it's very much a case of less is more. A research project by Lynn Grant found that core idioms, and that is really the stereotypical idiom with the opaque meaning separate to its words, are actually, again, pretty rare in everyday language. None of them were frequent enough to warrant being called frequent, put it that way. But the problem is when we have EFL or ESL classes, people tend to get taught idioms as this, highly frequent thing that native speakers use all the time in language, and therefore English learners overuse them. They believe mistakenly that they have to use lots of these idioms to sound natural in everyday conversation, but it's not really true. Again, it's a case of less is more. We do use them sometimes, but not often. So, to go back to the original question, no, it's certainly not the case of this idiom being old and nobody using it. People do use it. And indeed, I used it a few days ago when somebody called me on the phone and asked me, how's the weather in Ireland at the moment? And I said, well, it's Ireland. Of course it's shit. It's raining cats and dogs. It always is. That, however, is, it's an idiom that doesn't get used masses and masses and masses in everyday conversation. What is really important for you here to know is that when it comes to the studying of the English language, studying lists of words, phrases, expressions, idioms is actually a bit of a waste of time because it misrepresents the language. If you buy a workbook that teaches you English idioms, well, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a shitload of English idioms, but you don't actually know how often they get used in context. So the methods that I use and the methods that you should be using always start with real language and then aim to learn how language is actually used in context. And to get started with my methods, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, head over to doingenglish.com and sign up for my free daily emails. Every single day at 8 a.m. Ireland time, an email from yours truly will hit your inbox. Open it, read it, take action, improve. And of course, if you want to go deeper into the methodology that I use, you can and should join one of my courses. But the first port of call is always the Doing English Daily Newsletter. doingenglish.com, sign up. I am now going to have my lunch. Hopefully you found this video useful. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Give it a thumbs up anyway, even if you hated it. And I'll see you, my friend, in the next video. Bye-bye.